How's it going, guys? Welcome to another video in this series where we're comparing guitar gear and I'm giving my personal opinions on some of the most famous and best guitars, amplifiers and guitar pedals that are all coming up. In this video we're comparing a Les Paul type guitar and a Fender Telecaster, a 50s style, and it's from the Classic series. So this is an affordable Fender Telecaster at the mid-range. This is a mid-range price Les Paul that I have upgraded the pickups on. I've got a Seymour Duncan SH1 at the bridge. That gives me my kind of sound. Let's hear these two guitars in action. So in the first video in this series, I talked a lot about my Epiphone Les Paul and why that is my kind of go-to guitar, my go-to sound, and it was the guitar that I learnt how to play electric guitar on, basically, so I have a lot of feelings for this guitar. It is precious and dear to me. The Fender Telecaster has always been the one that's tempted me to stray, as it were. It is the guitar that appeals to me loads, not only because of the songs and the guitarists that use this and the songs that it features on, but also from the styling of it, the sound, and the sort of everything that a Telecaster represents. In my opinion, and I think this is quite a common opinion, the Telecaster represents a sort of salt of the earth, working man's guitar. It is a straight block of wood with kind of, this in particular model anyway, has very little contouring or anything. That was done intentionally. Even the narrow headstock was made intentionally so that they could keep the price down a little cheaper and literally use less wood than something like a Stratocaster would. I love the styling of it. The lack of contouring, as I've mentioned in a previous video, has been an issue when kind of playing guitar sat down. I do think it can feel a little bulky at the body. But let's have some more tones from these two guitars and check out what they sound like. So whether with a clean sound, or whether with overdrive or distortion, the Fender Telecaster is definitely synonymous with a Telecaster twang, which is even more characteristic than the sort of general Fender twang that we talked about, that it comes mainly from the single coil pickups and things like that, that's synonymous with the Stratocaster and other Fender guitars. The Telecaster is kind of synonymous with mainly that Keith Richards style twang that comes from having a little bit of crunch on the amp sound, that sort of my amp can't cope good sound that's, you know, not saturated with distortion. And then we really hear the characteristics of the pickups and everything on the guitar, the wood, the body, everything that is sort of stacking up to create this signature sound that is virtually impossible to kind of duplicate on any other guitar that doesn't look like this. It is one of those things that it's just totally signature. So of course, famous Telecaster guitarists include Keith Richards, Bruce Springsteen, Graham Coxon from Blur, and it's also used by a couple of my personal favourite bands. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine uses a Telecaster style guitar predominantly, though he has used a lot of other guitars as well. And also a big favourite of mine, Status Quo. They're who I sort of represent this with, but that's very much part of being British and from the north of England. I think they have a lot of fans up there. So if the Telecaster is kind of the salt of the earth working man's guitar, a little bit cleaner with a signature twang to it, then the Les Paul is typically, I think most people would agree, looks a little bit more flash and a bit more eloquent styling. There's a little bit more to it. The Les Paul is typically heavier, though a lot of them are chambered these days, and I believe this one is as well. So that means the inside of it, it has some hollow parts to it. Just to lessen the weight. Some people do think that affects the sound. I don't think it does too much personally. I think it is worth it. But the older Les Pauls are certainly very, very heavy. If you play like a 90s Les Paul, they're certainly a Gibson. They're super, super heavy, and it can be genuinely a consideration if you're doing a gig for 2 hours and using an old Gibson Les Paul or something. Let's have a listen to the Les Paul totally clean, especially seeing as I have changed the pickup in this guitar, and we'll kind of compare. So that is the bridge pickup, the SH1 Seymour Duncan, standard pickup, and you know, it's always, the neck pickup is always going to sound a bit more rounded and the bridge pickup more sharper, just because of, one, the type of pickup that would be there. You do have to buy a certain pickup to be here and a certain pickup to be here, but also because of where it is. It's brighter here than it is here. The strings are brighter here when the pickup is at this side. Even with that being said though, this is still more of a rounded tone than I would typically prefer, and I really love the kind of the bite and attack and kind of glassy tone that almost getting towards that more Telecaster tone that the SH1 gives us, and that PAF style pickup gives me, and that was why I chose to get this pickup. That's what I was after. Now it is still a single coil pickup, and it's just a different style. There are many variations of these pickups, and the single coil and the humbucker are just the main two differentiations between them. But don't let anything like that put you off if it is unfamiliar to you. Again, in my opinion, most people that will be watching this video will be newer guitarists, learner guitarists, and the goal of these videos that I'm making in this gear series is to give you guys a general overview to be able to make informed decisions at an earlier stage. Any specs that you want about these guitars or any of the other things in this series are down below in the description, and there you can search to your heart's content exactly what we're using and exactly what makes these guitars perhaps the ones for you. This Telecaster, like the Stratocaster that I demoed in the previous video in this series, is a 50s style classic series, which pitches it at kind of, you know, we're talking around the £600 mark. At the time of releasing this video anyway, it may be a little bit more or a little bit less at the time when you're watching this video, because prices do vary, but it is a great option as that sort of first step into a higher price range if you're a newer guitar player, or if you know, have a Les Paul or something else, another guitar already, and you're wanting that signature Telecaster sound. It is a good option to you know, not burst the bank but still get an absolutely quality instrument. You know, it's not made in America, it's made in Mexico. That is one of the things, and the main thing really, that keeps the price lower but without dropping the quality. And it's really important to know that, you know, £1,000 or £2,000 Telecasters, you know, you can be hard pressed to hear a difference, and certainly for it to make a difference in your playing, for most people, unless you're a real connoisseur and unless you have like tons of experience playing a great range of guitars, it's typically very difficult for most people to hear a difference, as is proven by a lot of the blindfolded tests and things that I've seen on YouTube and a lot of fun stuff like that. Now, if a Les Paul guitar typically leans towards the range of allowing you to play a heavier sound through your amplifier, so the sound of it is heavier and can give you a more overdrive sound, and a Stratocaster is kind of typical of giving you a cleaner sound, especially when it's got all single coil pickups. A Telecaster kind of sits in the middle. It's sort of like a hybrid of the two, but it is its own kind of instrument. Now, you can get a range of tones. It doesn't just do the Keith Richards style thing, but it is very synonymous with that, and you will always get that kind of signature sound with this. But all of Fender's guitars are typically give you a greater range of sound than any of the Gibson style ones. So if you're into a wider range of music, then typically I would sway you know, thinking more along the Telecaster or Stratocaster style guitar if that's what you're into. As I say, my personal preferences for preferring a Les Paul are of a kind of die-hard love of a certain sound, that if the guitar and amplifier can make that sound, then I'm happy. And if it does other things less well, then so be it. That's just kind of the bed I have made with my guitar sound. I'm in a position now where I have to get a range of tones, so I have a range of guitars, and as you can see behind me, I have more guitars available. But, you know, if I only had to pick two, I would say I would personally kind of pick these two to be able to do my sound and be able to get a range, and do that without busting the bank by keeping the price at around £500 or £600, so around $600 to perhaps $700. Something that is within the reach of most people if you prioritize it, and that's something that you really, you know, you think having a decent guitar is going to, you know, really make a difference to your life. If it doesn't, both of these guitars and many others are available for much less money, and I'll be reviewing some of those in the future, my sort of entry-level options for these style of guitars. But at this range, that kind of summarizes my thoughts on these guitars. Let me know your questions in the comments so that I can answer them. and answer any questions that you have and suggestions for future videos like this. As I say, I'm swaying towards giving my personal opinion rather than just reeling off specs, and rather than just shredding for you guys for half an hour. I want to kind of tell you stuff that I wish someone had told me back in the early days. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for the support, and I will see you in another video in this series of reviewing guitars, pedal reviews to come, and amp reviews and all the fun stuff like that. See you in another video.